Hello, everyone. Guillaume Laswell here, host of the E-commerce Wizards podcast, where I feature leaders in e-commerce and business. Today's guest is Derric Haynie, CEO of ecommercetech.io. What they do is they help merchants to research, discover, and buy the right tools to grow their e-commerce stores. And today we're going to be talking about the future of e-commerce. So it's always a very challenging topic to try to predict the future. And we're going to give it a shot today. But before we get started, here we have our sponsorship message. This episode is brought to you by MageMontreal. If your business wants a powerful e-commerce online store that will increase their sales, or to move piled up dormant inventory to free up cash reserves, or to automate business processes to gain efficiency and reduce human processing errors, our company, MageMontreal, can do that. We've been helping e-commerce stores for over a decade. Here's the catch. We're specialized and only work on the Adobe Magento e-commerce platform. We do everything Magento. If you know someone who needs design, development, maintenance, training, support, we got their back. Email our team, support@magemontreal.com, or go to magemontreal.com. That's MAGE Montreal.com. All right, Derric. So welcome back for the second time, having you here as a guest. It was a blast the first time, debating Shopify versus Magento. I think it was a very thorough coverage of the topic, and I'm happy to welcome you again.
Yeah, I think we both won in that one.
Yeah, well, that's it. Exactly. It's totally possible. It's a win-win scenario because the way we discussed it. So, you're the Shopify expert, I'm the Magento expert. There's always an objective truth to some degree as to what are the strengths and weaknesses and what's the right technology to use for each of those scenarios. Yeah, so, absolutely. As a guest, I'm going to give you the first shot at this. What's your vision for future of e-commerce? And let's talk about the timeline as well, because forecasting in 2 years, 3 years, it's probably somewhat realistic. You'll have a bit like a weather forecast. Maybe you'll have 80% accuracy or something. Not necessarily 100%, but the further you go away, the 5-year to 10-year period, then it starts to be pure science fiction and crystal ball forecasts, So go at it.
It doesn't have to be a crystal ball so much as vaguer. The predictions have to be a lot vaguer, 5 and 10 years out. But it's becoming really fascinating what's going on. I just looked at the news today, and PushOwl, which has been a leading push marketing tool for the Shopify app ecosystem, just got acquired by Sendinblue, which is more of a omni-channel marketing platform. And so, the first prediction or trend that we can absolutely see, we saw Yotpo acquire SMS Bump. There's a company called Assembly, which is kind of gobbling up a whole bunch of tools in the space to create another kind of all-in-one platform. Klaviyo becoming a platform. All these tools are actually, all in one. So the kind of proliferation of the last 10, 20 years in e-commerce technology is leading to strong roll-up consolidation. And when I say strong, I mean, in the past, if you tried to do all in one, and some of the tools that launched in the past as all in one, they were kind of weak at everything, right? They couldn't spin all the plates at the same time. But now through acquisition, you actually have really strong tool, really strong tool, really strong tool. They come together under one platform, and you've got a set of really strong tools that are truly all in one. All the data is in a centralized location and can be viewed. You can modify campaigns and activities within that one centralized location. They're no longer integrations between them and that you might lose data on or create silos. So that the first and perhaps most obvious prediction is that PushOwl was absolutely right to get acquired, because I believe in 5 years' time, there won't be a standalone push notification tool. There won't be a standalone SMS marketing tool, right? All the tools will have to have all of the things in one place.
Well, then that becomes a discussion of being a company versus being a feature. Steve Jobs was said to be frustrated by not acquiring Dropbox, if I recall correctly, with his bid on it. But he said, "Well, that's not a company; that's a feature." So he had the feature. So of course, sometimes you can make a whole company out of a feature. That's possible too. But that's what you're saying. An SMS, yeah, sure. You'll probably still have stuff like Twilio or the very big SMS independent carriers like this if you want to build something custom. But that's different. Most tools you can see Klaviyo doing this, adding SMS as their core offering and so on, and it will keep happening. It is a big debate, having a one tool that does everything versus specialized tools, especially if you're a startup, it is better to create a new company that would be specialized in one specific area and not necessarily go for the one tool that that does it all. But of course, if you have millions in VC backing, you can acquire those. Um, but then there's the question of how long will they be able to stay as the best tool? They will typically end up, sort of term, but sucking in one of those areas. If they try to be the best at everything, it's just not going to happen as a tool. And eventually,
are you talking about Adobe Creative Cloud? I gotcha.
One of those. Right? Just kidding. Have to roll with the punches here, but and that's not the only thing. Any of them out there. Let's say you look at Zoho, because you're talking about integration of those software together. It's not that integrated. Some of the Zoho software don't speak to the other Zoho software, and they're all made by the same company. And then if you look, let's say, at Salesforce, they have a B2B platform because they grew through acquisition, and then you have a B2C platform for, and you need to have two e-commerce stores, and that's the number one way to kill.
And they have a separate app marketplace, which is more plug and play. And of course, those are integrations into the platform as opposed to actually owned and operated by Salesforce.
And because Salesforce is becoming very aggressive in the market as an e-commerce platform, but because they grew by acquisition like this, and that you need to duplicate all your work into two platforms, as soon as you're a merchant who does both B2C and B2B, Salesforce just dies in the pitch and somebody else wins. Like it's either Magento that will win, Adobe Commerce, or it will be Shopify Plus or BigCommerce or some of the other interesting players as soon as you have a mix of B2B and B2C. Anyway,
right here. So the second point on that is because of the all-in-one creation, there's so many ways that can go wrong through acquisition, through how the companies merge and integrate with each other. So it will be interesting to keep an eye on how well they do and how well they stay on top of the all-in-one. It is, every company that gets larger and larger has more convoluted processes, more red tape, more interdepartmental lack of connectivity. And you see this at Shopify. I think it happens at Adobe. It happens at Intuit. It happens at Salesforce. And so that'll be a challenge because the needs of us as merchants and kind of like buying these tools are very strong, and we need them to be collaborative and truly all in one. So whoever pulls it off the best will, there is market share to be gained there. And everybody else will just claim to have, a good all-in-one solution. But then when you use it, it's like, actually, we got 5 solutions like duct taped together,
Yeah, pretty much. And it doesn't necessarily go well together. So anyway, that's the challenge in reality that you see with all those system integration, that what is sold by a marketing and sales team and what you get in reality is not as bad as your duct tape image, but that is certainly a colorful image, and that conveys the point across really well. Same thing again on Salesforce. They have that kind of sales pitch of a unified cloud offering like this, but it's all through acquisition. It doesn't speak together that well at this point. Maybe it will one day, but that's the risk when it's through acquisition. So anyway, that's one specific point. Also, we can clarify that for the future of e-commerce, it depends in which step you are at. Let's say in the pyramid of sophistication of e-commerce. In 5 years, some people will still not have their product description and product images straightened out, But then there are more advanced levels after that. Like, do you even apply what's currently available, such as A/B testing? You send 50% of the traffic to version A, 50% version B, let it run for a while, and then maybe a month, depending on your volume of traffic, could be less. And then you see if version A or version B is winning, and you just keep the winning store and you trash the losing store. So for sure, I can see in the very short term that just people moving up the pyramid of already existing tech and to actually start applying those things. It's surprising the number of merchants who do not even run A/B testing.
Yeah, and this actually maybe brings, so I'll bring up a second concept of where everything's are heading. And this is down the road, pie in the sky for sure. But we're moving there faster than people think, and it's becoming a bigger opportunity every day. AI is going to decide to run the A/B test. It's going to create the alternative test, and it's going to increase conversion rate all by itself. And it'll do this with AI copywriting tools. So it'll be able to test the copy of 2. There's AI testing for product imagery. So it'll actually say, hey, which image should be, the first image? How many images should we have? There's also A/B testing tools that are using AI for video. So how to incorporate video on the landing page. And so I believe that we're moving towards a place where AI will run the split tests and increase conversion rate over time. And that also leads to, personalization, because it's not just about split testing over the masses, but also understanding how this user might want this page to be displayed based on their browsing behavior and purchase behavior and all that stuff.
Totally agreed with this because there's no way that human labor can keep up with the automated AI-based optimization like this. You have it, for example, on Magento in just one specific area, not for landing pages and layout or copywriting, but you have it for product recommendation, for cross-selling and upselling.
Mhm.
So you have Adobe Sensei, the artificial intelligence platform of Adobe there that will do recommendations, and then it will self-correct if the recommendation is not good. And let's say you have a huge catalog of products. Some merchants have 150,000 SKUs, which is huge. Try to have a smaller one if it makes commercial sense. But there's no way you could upkeep all of this, but the AI can do it for you, just the software, and just it updates all the data everywhere. So automatic AI improvements of conversion rates for sure is going to be more and more important. Right now, we're at the stage where products recommendation get this, and I agree that we'll get eventually to landing page design changes to increase conversion.
Yeah, and just a completely personalized experience for every user every time they log in to every e-commerce store on the internet. Right now, it's like Amazon maybe, right, is the most personalized experience you could have. So that does lead us to maybe another takeaway point, which is like having being logged in to your e-commerce store is going to become a little bit more important, since we have less kind of cookie problems and tracking problems. And so having your users actually logged in as they browse your store can be a lot more beneficial to you than prior, as you implement these AI and personalization tools.
AI will play for sure a bigger and bigger role. In terms of copywriting, it still needs supervision for now, but I believe it will get there. That's for sure.
So the AI can make recommendations of copy, and then you can kind of approve, not approve. The interesting thing is that you could you could reject things because maybe it isn't right well written. But if you're rejecting it because you don't feel it's good, the AI could say, "Well, test it," and then it could actually prove you wrong, because
Absolutely.
most of the time we're not we're doing things off of like what we think is right, but we haven't tested it in market.
And which is the whole point of A/B testing, and to remove, let's say, that rank pulling or that my opinion, your opinion, and say, well, let's figure it out. Let's run the test on it and see which of the two converts better. Okay, so what else with AI? Because for sure AI is a big topic. Another fun thing Adobe released, it's already in the present tense now, it's the visually similar shopping. So let's say you're shopping for whatever it is, let's say a tile, a carpet or something, and then you will be shown visually similar product. That's through AI of recognition of the images of the product in the catalog. So there's zero manual work. So the developer just sets an area, suggests visually similar products, and the AI does everything for you. It's probably going to keep increasing that aspect.
Yeah, and this is merchandising, is what you're kind of talking about in some ways. So when a lot of these personalization platforms are becoming what they call merchandising platforms, so they're changing their name, because you get to choose: do I want to make more revenue? Do I want more customers? Do I want more profit? Do I want to clear out old inventory? And you can teach the personalization engine to optimize for each of those things. And then you become a merchandiser controlling the AI just based on the goals of the business. And then, the long term, I believe that'll even extend into supply chain management. The AI might suggest products to add to the site. If you give it full control, it could even buy a purchase order of 1,000 of those products, put it on the site. It gets shipped to the warehouse, which is fully automated, and sells the product. So if you think about it, like AI could take over like the marketer's job on conversion rate optimization, and media buying can also be done almost completely with AI. And then the merchandise and the operations department is now being done. The product information management, the PIMs, are going to come in, be optimized from AI, and put onto the site. So it's like, whose job is left? Who's safe? Customer service is going to be AI. Like
more and more, it's going to replace a lot, but it's going to be great because it's going to give us even more free time. And there's just so much work to do in a business. There's a reason why you have stuff like executive packages that are not paid hourly, and then people are just expected to devote their life to the company. And if you're an entrepreneur, that's probably what you've done to create a successful company. So we need the extra help without having to work 80 hours a week, to run those companies. So that help will be welcome.
Yeah. Absolutely. It just changes. It's another part of the larger conversation of changing workforce and what to do as jobs get displaced and where
Exactly.
people's time go. But at the end of the day, for consumers, it will be huge. And I think for merchants at the top, owners and technical facilitators and those controlling the AI and managing those systems and processes and implementing them well, they will see insane amounts of growth and profit because it's more powerful than a team of 5 or 10 people doing manual, product placement and manual optimizations of pages and all that stuff.
That's for sure. And I don't believe we have to be scared of that, of like too many people losing their jobs or whatever. It's just the normal evolution, just like the car replaced the horse, and like don't be afraid. And yes, the blacksmith was out of work and whatever. Evolution, okay. So I
Yeah,
believe
I agree.
that's just the way it is, and then we'll be able to move to higher level, higher value activities, more thinking. If you go really deep down that path, there are various talks about universal income worldwide, especially once you'll have a self-driving vehicle that are actually mainstream,
Yeah.
because you have such a large percentage of the world's population as job that are some form of transport. Uh, but
Yeah.
that's a bit of a different discussion
It's
here.
it's kind of related because the future of e-commerce is the future of business and the future of life. Commerce is
Uh,
what, like, I don't know what the trillions of global it is, but it's most of what we do is buy things, use them, eat them, buy more things. We're all
right,
consumers at
right.
heart. We have to be.
I can see the delivery section of things that Amazon is putting a huge pressure on everybody else to be more competitive on shipping. I can tell you a very unpleasant experience. I'm not going to say the name of the shipping carrier, but they just attempt to come once here to your office to deliver. Then you have to go and pick it up at their delivery center that's 30 minutes away. Say, hey man, I paid for shipping. Not for me to drive 30 minutes to go, 30 minutes to come back for an hour to pick up the damn thing. I would have just went to the local store, would have been even closer, 10 minutes away, let's say. So
Yeah.
there are experiences like this that you'll need to think about because Amazon is moving, those large distribution centers into each of the major cities. And then eventually we'll have more and more robot delivery, especially for the last mile of the delivery, which is the most expensive. And this will be progressive depending on how fast the laws of each countries and states provinces will adopt these things. You'll probably have a lot, just the rolling robot that will come and deliver something to your door. Drone delivery is not science fiction at all. It's perfectly doable with today's technology, with air flight control and so on. It's just a question, again, regulations and risk, and you don't want to have a drone falling on your head, and so.
Yeah. And,
but
and
but
and creating delivery zones needs to be kind of common practice, especially for apartment buildings. Then you'll have the apartment drone that takes it down to the room, drops it
yeah,
off at the door.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
So
do see that as becoming a reality. It's not science fiction. It's just a number of years away, but it's just logical. You'll have drone delivery.
yeah. Now, what I would argue here is that Amazon isn't necessarily the one pushing this. Amazon's just the largest player in the space, so they have the
Correct.
most technological innovation. It's the consumer that's pushing this. As we look to buy
That's
more
true.
and more products online, many of these products are consumable, including grocery shopping, which many of us, including me, probably did, and especially at the beginning of the pandemic, and we still do every once in a while buy our groceries and have them delivered. We need these things done and we need them done fast and we need to know when they're going to arrive. Things are going to spoil if we don't get them in the fridge. And so I think that the consumers largely drive the demand for quicker shipping, which actually brings up a counter point, which, or maybe it's the kind of problem of a barrier to entry, which means if you're a small merchant, you can't distribute your product across the nation or the globe and expect it to, reach people's homes in 24 or 48 hours. So you're going to have slower delivery windows, which means people are going to kind of not like you as much, which means you have to have a stronger brand connection and you have to reach points of scale faster, which means being small as a merchant could actually be a lot harder in the future. Now we have all sorts of lowering barriers of entry on the entrepreneurial side, but this is one that I see actually increasing the barrier to entry on the shipping and logistics side because it just helps to have 10,000 orders a month instead of 100, right?
Totally, and that is true what you're saying from my point of view. And there are ways to counter this though, and the way to counter this is to have more specialized expertise into what you're selling, so that you have also that service and human guidance, counselor type of service here, and not just a commodity or more specialized offerings instead of another Me Too product. But for the Me Too product, for sure, yeah, it's
So
going to be more challenging.
That's another great prediction, because we talked about the proliferation of e-commerce technology and consolidation there. The proliferation of e-commerce itself brought this whole wave of drop shipping from China, Alibaba, Oberlo, and a lot of entrepreneurs entered the space on that premise of like selling a Me Too kind of product and just hoping to take market share, typically with Facebook ads back before ad inventory had kind of run out and prices started to increase. And so that was a big thing that people made hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars off of. But each person maybe made their, 1 million each in sales or something like that. They might only even take home 100,000 at the end of the year on top of those profits. So not necessarily they're companies, but they were built on kind of selling product instead of building brand relationships. And so the prediction that I would make over the next 10 years is that I call it the rise of the digitally native vertical brand. As you talked about, the niches is where the riches are. Those kind of drop shippers of the past with pass-through business models are really going to struggle because cost of acquisition is going up. So the companies that are going to win are the ones that can retain customers and have higher lifetime value and can invest in the future and the growth of that customer. Therefore, we're going to see more direct-to-consumer, digitally native vertical brands in all sorts of interesting niches. We've seen like Hush Blankets that sells a weighted blanket, which was a thing in the past, but now it's like you get behind a movement when you buy this blanket, right? You could think about, I've got BlendJet on my wall, the world's like first portable blender. There's a whole movement of fitness behind it. I've got these shakes or their organic drinks. So, you could buy a really nice health drink at, a store or a fitness studio, but now you're building a relationship with the brand by selling them direct to consumer. So, that's the next, perhaps, prediction of the future.
Well, this is just going deeper than to what's already there, because owning the relationship with the customer is extremely valuable. It's already in place, and it's already something you can do right now today. If you're selling on Amazon, that is typically the problem that you have. You have no relationship with the customer. Amazon owns the customer. And it's why some people try to diversify, to open also a store after their success on Amazon, to try to own some customer relationship and build their own list, email list, SMS list, and so on. And then increasing the lifetime value of your customer, either increasing the average cart order, increasing the frequency of order, and just keeping them for the long run. For sure, this is already valid, and I can see it becoming even more valid. Like the table stakes are just raising all the time, basically.
Okay, so it's not much of a prediction since it's already happening. I get it.
Well, no, it's a prediction that the table stake will rise and that it will become even more the case. So you're predicting an increase in something that's there.
Yeah, which could lead me to another massive prediction. So Amazon is kind of like that drop shipper model. If you think about it, they really grew on the backbone of a lot of people drop shipping from China and doing really good Amazon SEO for a lot of products that are kind of broad categories and generic. And right, there's not a lot of brand relationships. And of course, you have Samsung and all these big companies selling on Amazon as a channel partner. But their catalog is massive, and they sell this wide array of products. And also Amazon doesn't let the seller really communicate much with the customer. So they keep this separated marketplace, right? So that they own, that's what makes Amazon kind of that evil conglomerate. They own the customer, but they make money off of you. And of course they're making money, So it's so there's a flip side to that, which of course would be Shopify is now perfectly positioned to open up basically an Amazon competitor. But if you look at the brands on Shopify, they're all a lot of these digitally native vertical brands. So they are actually more in tune with customer relationship. And this could become a way to kind of bring a closer together marketplace for millions of people and have relationships with each of my individual brands, but all in one place. And so that'd be my big prediction, perhaps. And I've said it publicly a few times. Shopify is going to open up, I don't know if it's shop.com or something like that. It's going to be an Amazon competitor. They already have the fulfillment networks, and they can onboard, millions of brands in here, and they will have a strong differentiation factor. They're going to come at it from a different angle. And
I had not thought of it, but now that you say it, it's self-obvious. it will happen. Yeah, if they decide to go in that direction, they're the best positioned company for this because they're the biggest SaaS software as a service e-commerce platform out there. They're way bigger than, let's say, BigCommerce and so on. The other one that are open source, like Magento and so on. All the stores are disconnected in different servers all across the world. So Shopify, they own all the hosting and they have access to those thousands and thousands of brands already, all connected on their own infrastructure, almost all of them using their own payment gateway, their own fulfillment system, and so on. So they're already positioned to open the world's biggest marketplace.
They gave us a hint too in one of their last financial quarterly reports. Instead of showing Shopify versus their competitors, Magento, BigCommerce, WooCommerce, right, and the leading e-commerce platforms, they actually showed Shopify against Amazon, Walmart, eBay, Etsy, and other seller platforms, right? So I'm like, wait a second, they don't compete against Amazon, they compete against Magento, right? And it's like, no, they think of themselves as an e-commerce player, not a platform. And so that's you can guarantee. I would bet the farm on it. And
I always thought they were brilliant, the guys who started that, and like it's smart way of going. And their current market capitalization, at $230 billion. I mean, they're the best positioned player by far to do this.
Yeah. That's a fun little prediction. And for merchants, merchants listening, if you're on Shopify now, I think you'll have the option to opt in on their platform or opt out. You'll still have your direct to consumer site, but you'll be able to there'll be a channel partner of yours the same way that you used to have Amazon as a channel partner. By the way, another hint is that Shopify pulled out of their direct Amazon integration a few weeks ago. So they're saying, like, we're not going to let you sell on Amazon anymore.
Wow, okay, that's a huge move. That's a huge move. So they're trying to disconnect Shopify from Amazon. That's what they're saying.
Yeah, so that they can be Amazon.
I think that's a fairly not so subtle declaration of war.
Yeah, right. Same with Shopify and MailChimp had a little bit of a war problem in the past, and MailChimp ended up having to pull out of the Shopify App Store. And so similarly, this is a big deal, and so it's exciting.
Which is huge because then it creates other companies like Klaviyo. I mean, if you get MailChimp out of the way, it opens room for another to grab the power, such as Klaviyo.
And MailChimp, I've seen the users for MailChimp migrating to Klaviyo in flocks, thousands at a time. And so, which probably gave them, they raised $320 million and launched SMS, in the last year or so. So that's probably how they got that insane valuation.
Yeah, indeed. Okay. Those are very interesting predictions. And there are different point of views. Again, there's what's new for a merchant or manufacturer, distributors, retailer, and there's what's new for the consumer. So the consumer, the delivery, let's say robotized delivery, maybe the opening of another marketplace that is an alternative to Amazon is interesting. For merchants, well, regardless if you have a Shopify store or not, just to be able to connect to one more platform. They'll probably start as a closed system and eventually open up. Who knows what they'll do, but a lot of systems starts this way. Let's say like the iPod started as something just music, just for the Mac users. And then it opened up to the world. Yeah. So it's probably something like that, a phased approach. And then maybe they'll do a bit like everybody else, like Walmart and those other marketplaces. They are open to everybody. It doesn't matter what you sell on. Especially if Shopify stops seeing itself as a competitor, let's say, of Magento, BigCommerce, and the other platforms. They might even welcome those other platforms to sell on the marketplace with an API connection. If their number one fight is against Amazon, they might take all the allies they can get. Who knows?
Yeah, that's interesting to think about. And you mentioned the consumer side, and so because we'll be using more centralized platforms, and this has already happened with ShopPay and a few others, but there will be less having to input your credit card and shipping information, which I absolutely hate, by the way. Like, you should know who I am. Even if it's a new e-commerce site, like, hey, my information's stored in Samsung. Can't you just pre-populate, on my phone or whatever it is, like pre-populate this information? I think have the checkout process shouldn't be, what is your credit card? What is your address? It should be, this is your credit card and address, right? Like, it's yes. And we'll, it should be done for me. you should know who I am a little bit more at checkout. I think that's a big
That's
problem.
true. Well, for now, those are third-party system like Dashlane or
Yeah.
LastPass that will use this. And Dashlane is way better for team sharing. If it's for personal use, they're both really good. LastPass is great for personal use, but not so great for company use. Uh, can change at the time of this recording. We switch from one to the other. Yeah, just a little parenthesis about this, but I agree with you. Like we always have to re-enter our information everywhere. Single sign-on is getting some headways here and there, but again, it seems sometimes unclear or obscure, or a single sign-on to what exactly, or just to one other website that you did not save me much time. So it's true that the digital right management and digital access rights could be managed even better. But it's fun that you have that now on your phone, that you can unlock your phone just with your face like that. And that's no more password and just face recognition. Super convenient for you.
Yeah, unless I have a picture of you, but that's okay.
Which doesn't work. It does detect 3D.
Oh, okay. I didn't even know that. Yeah, I'm with you. I just think that, the nth level of this is that we never have to enter our credit card information. It's like almost like stored to our face or stored to our, being, however you want to say it, and it just recognizes who we are, and the fraud can be protected a little bit better through this, and the process becomes seamless. People are optimizing their checkout pages all the time, trying to increase conversion rate. Hopefully it just kind of goes away is what I'm saying. And there always will be a time where you need to update some information, you change address, you change credit cards, but it should be like, 95% just removed from the process.
I'm not too sure what else. I'm not an expert in everything that is product sourcing. My expertise is more about building the websites, making them perform, making them convert, and so on, and technology system integration. But I do hear a pain point from merchants about everything that is, let's say, sending to China, the production, and the payment terms for that, and all the risk associated with this, and the turnover time from the cash flow management and all that. So there could be perhaps some kind of improvement there, again, with some consolidation, maybe some bigger players taking over, that you can trust them better and that they will guarantee the quality of the work that is being shipped to you. Because if you have $100,000 shipment, you want to be sure it's the right product, and the sample product they send you is sometimes better than what they will send as a mass quality.
Sometimes always.
Sometimes always. So then you need to have a separate company directly already in China who will do the inspection for you. And there are lots of complex steps that could be simplified by a player who understands customer service right and understands correctly the needs of the businesses here, and how to simplify all this, how to instead of like doing like almost every business, to pull on their end to have the best cash flow that they can, that say you always want to get paid as fast as possible, pay the other as slow as possible. And for this, it often means that the merchant here gives a 50% deposit as soon as he places the order in China. And then, as soon as the order is ready to be shipped from China, they have to pay the other 50% of the whole order. And let's say that's $100,000, and you still have not seen anything. The containers are still in China at that point. Now it crosses the sea, comes over here, goes to custom, and it gets through packaging. It takes a while before it gets actually, so there are optimization and improvements that can be done in that pipeline. That I'm not sure exactly what, but in which shape or form it would take. But if somebody nails that right, could be another massive company, a bit like Alibaba, to make that whole thing easy. You want to buy from China, Alibaba style. There would be other ways to do this.
Here, so there's something there, and you think about manufacturing, and it tends to be an economies of scale system, right? You need a large warehouse and a lot of expensive machinery to build a widget. And that's why, large warehouses in China with a large labor force behind them, and typically lower kind of cost of labor and regulation, that has been the forefront of production. However, we think about the future of e-commerce, we can think about localization of product development, more warehouses in the United States or Mexico or other places. We can also think about 3D printing and how that might impact the ability to lower the cost of the need of a large manufacturing plant, warehouse, and people. And so as those things come into play more and more, we could expect a democratization of our supply chain, meaning there should be thousands of local, I mean, there are thousands, but millions of local manufacturers that have very competitive pricing and are doing this in a near autonomous way. Again, the product will be 3D printed. The materials for 3D printing will ship in and automatically be plugged in from an AI truck that's driven, with no driver, and it just offloads automatically into the system. The AI, or maybe the AI, like a robot, loads it into the system. I'm not crazy, okay?
No,
Then
it's
the
fun
3D
actually.
printer
I'm
prints
smiling because it's fun.
it goes down on this conveyor belt. It goes into the box. The other robot drives it away in the truck, and it gets delivered to the house. So like it's a completely autonomous process.
Yeah, what you're talking about is one step before the Star Trek replicator.
Yeah.
So,
it's a lot slower and not nearly as cool. But
but it is logical because 3D printing is still a kind of a hobbyist thing right now, or a highly specialized thing. They are starting to print buildings and houses now.
Yeah.
So it's typically that huge concrete machine, and it's like a huge printer that just pours concrete. So instead of having those usual mold and you pour the concrete in, you have a 3D printing of the whole house in concrete. And then you slap nice finishing materials on top of it, or insulation, or whatever you need. And you can finish a house way cheaper, way faster. Like the 3D printer, it will keep improving, but I think it would print the whole house in like 3 days or something like that. Then you just do the finishing, which is insane when you think about it.
You can also 3D print burgers now. So you can 3D print food. Yeah, real food.
The bread too?
Burgers. Meat, at least, has been done. And people will say it tastes like a burger. I can't wait to have my first. And I think you can do no meat burgers and all that stuff. So food could even be 3D printed, but certainly, a lot of e-commerce can already be made in a 3D printed or a composite kind of way that doesn't require too much human intervention. And you can think about how that autonomy is going to only increase over time, and so all these things converging make for a very interesting future.
But you can 3D print the bread dough, and then you just bake it. You just cook it. So we'll get toward that. Now we're starting to have real fun. Once you'll have a robot doing the cooking in your kitchen,
and the cleaning,
more than just a little robot that runs around your house right now to do the vacuum cleaning.
Stuck under my counters and knocks over my mirrors. Yeah, it's like now the Roomba can now detect dog poop. By the way, so that's an interesting innovation.
It doesn't smear it all over the place.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Which was the biggest complaint. I actually was a consultant for a competitor to Roomba, so I know that's the number one complaint. But anyways,
that's interesting. You might not think about that in the business plan. Okay, so now we're having fun. What else here? E-commerce. Yeah, when you can 3D print in a more reliable way, that it's not a hobbyist thing, because 3D printers are at the stage that's a bit like the early computers. It was more for hobbyists, and you would tinker around and create your own machine, and that kind of culture. That's where 3D printing still is right now, that you sort of 3D print the other parts that you need to enhance your 3D printer. That's where we're at. So eventually, when it gets to more convenient, I can definitely see one day every house having a 3D printer, and you download printing specs, and then you have materials to print that stuff.
Yeah, it's printed at your house. You don't even need shipping and logistics. It's
exactly
replicated
for right a lot of stuff. Then you'll just ship whatever it is, the plastic, the this and that, the metal, so that the printer can use it.
Yeah, I still see it being localized first and then in-home second is how I would imagine it. Simply because, not everyone's going to buy a 3D printer, or it's one of those technology adoption things. Some people still don't use iPhones, or I don't even know how to send a text message. Like that'll be you and me in 20 years. I don't know how to 3D print. Like, just send me the stuff,
Just ship it to me. Yeah, exactly. But it takes time, just like the Microsoft Vision. You have one computer in every house. I don't remember how many years exactly it took them for this to happen, but it could be fair enough to say it could happen with 3D printer, but that's far away. hard to estimate the time, but that's many, many years away. You need to first get out of that phase of just tinkering around, amateur product. Then localized product makes sense. Of course, also with COVID, everybody's now more concerned about local production of goods and over reliance on supply chain that are far away. So I do agree that there will be a movement for local production. It's already there. Various governments have put it in place. Now, how much of it will actually follow through? That's the big question. Because you can still see almost every seller that the first thing they think about is that, oh, let's get it produced cheap in China. So to bring back the jobs here as much as possible, get a production here, which is absolutely incredible when you think about what Elon Musk is doing in these things, that he's like creating jobs here for large manufacturing, which is impressive. We'll see how big of a movement that will be, but the more the better to have local production of everything.
I think diversification of supply chain it's de-risks an e-commerce business, and COVID just brought it to our attention that people were highly leveraged, and they didn't really understand that they were leveraged because the supply chain just worked so consistently. And the same thing's true for diversification of channels. A lot of companies, we talked about those drop shippers of the past, they made millions off of running Facebook ads, and Facebook, of course, profited nicely off of that. But if you just run Facebook ads, when you go to sell your company, your valuation is always significantly lower. Whereas if you have Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, organic search, direct, word of mouth, referral programs, loyalty programs, et cetera, you get a much higher valuation because you have diversification of channel. And also they evaluate diversification of supply chain.
Totally agree. And it's not just about the valuation of the company, it's for your own risk management as well. We've seen it happen just too often with Google, especially with the natural search results in SEO, search engine optimization, that Google changes the algorithm, you lose a lot of ranking. And we heard some horror story like this of people staying stuck with inventory that they were not able to sell anymore because they lost their organic ranking. So you just want to diversify the sources of traffic so that you can still sell that inventory, even if it's a bit slower, even if one of those channels changes the rule and does not become a good source of new customers.
Yeah. And while we talked about the rise of the digitally native vertical brand, diversification of product is also very important. Early on in the pandemic, I met with a bikini company based out of Brazil. They had been doing really well selling to retail and selling bikinis. Turns out during a pandemic, doesn't matter if it's summer or not, nobody's buying a bikini. So they had lost, a lot in sales. And so they transitioned to buying or selling masks, basically like same material. So it was very trendy masks. And then they ended up selling bikinis with matching masks. Which
I was about to say
really
you can have the matching mask.
And they kind of brought back their business in that way. And so while that's a COVID specific situation, market dynamics change all of the time. Trending, hair products, skincare, and all of that stuff aren't going to stay around forever. And so we need the diversification of our product lines in order to make sure that we're still relevant in the next cycle or season or whatever. I think I'm out.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good coverage. We covered lots of topics, and improvements in shipping. We've covered that already a little bit. There's more that needs to be done in that regard as well. And I agree with your point that it's not Amazon's not like the bad guy here in the sense of putting pressure on the smaller store. They're just raising the bar as to what people are expecting. They're just trying themselves to be better all the time, to deliver faster to everybody, and that eventually ordering on Amazon for the core high bestseller product will be almost like ordering a pizza, and 2 hours later you have it at home. A slow pizza, 2 hours, not the 30-minute delivery. But still, that's where it's going for the more popular SKUs, not for the whole inventory, the long tail. And the small merchants will need to adapt with this. But if the drone industry gets in place enough, and automation and all this, you could have competing systems, and that will allow the smaller players to be able to match the offering.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, that was a fun discussion. Always fun to try to imagine the future. I'm sure there's a lot that we've left out, but that was a good discussion.
Yeah, it's a good starting point for people to think about as they think about what they should be doing differently in their business and what they should be prepared for. A lot of people weren't prepared for COVID changing their business. It's better to have plans and be proactive than wait until things happen to you and then have to figure it out from there.
Fully agreed. All right, Derric. Well, if people want to find you, where do they go?
You can go to ecommercetech.io to go browse our massive product catalog of over 130 hand-reviewed products that I think I demoed all. I've demoed all of them personally. Or you can email me, Derric, Derric, at ecommercetech.io. Always happy to chat.
All right. Thank you, Derric.